Among the Jefferson data, the use of intensifying right can be linked to older speakers who are also not coincidentally the speakers with the lowest education levels. Age and education level are variables easily linked within this community, since most of the older speakers never had the opportunity to pursue any kind of educational interest. So far, I've taken you on a whirlwind tour through some grammatical features that are used by the Jefferson community at large, and one feature that is used by older Jefferson speakers in particular. None of these features is favored in any kind of specific discourse. They're simply part of the general Jefferson community speech. There are, however, two grammatical variables that, for some speakers, interact with a specific type of discourse, that of storytelling. Now, non-standard past tense can take on several different forms. I'm just going to run through these very briefly. The most common among my data is the use of present tense for past. Most often come for came and give for gave. Also common is regularized past tense, like know for knew. Another of the most frequently found non-standard past tense forms is seen for saw, where you have past participle being used as preterite. Less common is the reverse, where you have preterite for past participle, like that hog, the hog had went into the pen. So it's hard for me to say. Also present in my data are several examples of double past construction. And so stole and knew, where you have the ed and the added onto an already past tense form. Yet one last incarnation of non-standard past tense occurs when the past tense verb is substituted by another form of the verb altogether. Commonly, especially for those Atlas people, riz for rose and het for heated. Among my data, quite frequently I saw set or sat. And so when I was little, we sat on the porch every night after dinner. A prefixing is perhaps the most stereotypical grammatical feature associated with Southern and Appalachian speech. A running and a laughing are examples that follow the usual pattern for a prefix, where the prefix is added on to a progressive form of the verb. Though an a prefix does occur most often with the progressive form, feature can also be found as part of what Wolfram and Christian in 1976 called an adverbial complement. An example from my data is she was scared to death of storms. The final word on the semantics of the a prefix is that the feature might serve as a stylistic marker connected to storytelling. Wolfram 1988 states that a prefix seems to favor intensity, but is by no means restricted to stylistically intense situations. Wolfram also states that we could expect that the narration of stories with dramatic vividness would give rise to older, rural, vernacular forms as part of stylistic manipulation. And once again, Wolfram is clear that this may indicate preference, but is by no means a restriction. Fraser, 1990, using data from Midwestern speakers, also concludes that the a prefix acts as an indicator of a shift into vernacular styles. In addition, he found that the speech of the younger speakers, 40 and under, that the a prefix tended to occur in specific semantic contexts, those associated with humor, crisis, and children. How odd when the three of those go together, humor, crisis, and children. However, Fraser notes that the majority of the interview responses all from elderly informants fit no particular semantic context at all, which he suggests points to the changing role of the feature. He also notes that the use of invariant was seemed to accompany the a prefix as part of the vernacular style. Fraser's observation is that the older speakers and younger speakers differ in their use of the a prefix, and that the a prefix does not travel alone, mirror my own findings in the Jefferson residents, in the speech of Jefferson residents. Now I want to turn to some specific Jefferson speakers and their stories. The older Jefferson speakers told stories that showed this community was, and still is, people with independent vote know the value of hard work and the merits of humor. Most of the stories were about now-deceased family members, mostly women, whose deeds of bravery, determination, and physical strength repeatedly saved the day from Yankee marauders, stoic husbands, and disobedient children. This is not to say that the older speakers couldn't blow a joke or two. The following, I swear to God, was told to me by PB, a 96-year-old woman who claimed that she wouldn't abide by dirty jokes, and immediately proceeded to tell me this one. And I can't do it justice, I'll say that now. and her nipples weren't showing. And we women, after we get older, our breasts hang so bad. And so as she says to her mother, grandmother, now you know, Grandma, you can't go out that way. Well, she says, if you can show your rosebuds, I can show my hanging basket. And so, seriously, I wanted to share this passage, not so much for the disturbing imagery, as for the examples of non-standard past tense and prefixing, because we've got complicated twice, and we have to show it. And now I'm going to skip ahead a great deal. In order to highlight possible interaction between storytelling and specific grammatical features, each set of interview data was divided into narrative, non-narrative categories. And I want to turn your attention to the first of two tables. And basically, this table has information about the three oldest speakers. All of whom are women. You've got your age there, 84, 97, and 96. And it's divided up into narrative, non-narrative, and I've got the number of words that fell into the narrative, non-narrative categories. And then I have the number of instances of non-standard past tense, PT, and a prefixing, obviously AP. And what I have, the number in parentheses, is the number of occurrences of the feature per 1,000 words of speech. For example, RW uses non-standard past tense forms 33 times in 1,895 words of narrative speech, which is a percentage of 0.017, which translates to 17 occurrences per 1,000 words of narrative speech. And so what I thought was, because there was obviously different amounts of narrative and non-narrative speech in everybody's interview, that using this kind of per 1,000 count would allow me a more even comparison between the person using it themselves and between different speakers. So at first glance, it appears that there might be a link between the use of these features, both of these features, in narrative passages. If you look at the numbers in parentheses, you see that that's not really the case. There's a slight tendency for RW, who favors non-standard past